rap.
Welcome, Wrestle Buddies, to our new series, Journey of a Pro Wrestler, and I am glad to be joined by the main man, Kid Bandit. How we doing, buddy?
I'm great. Right before this came up, we were chatting about Game of Thrones, so I'm really hyped up.
we was. Always good to have a good talk about some gaming stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, how you doing, mate? Thanks for joining me. Obviously, it's going to be a bit of a weekly series, this on, your journey and how you become a pro wrestler and how you come from your own country to the United States, and it's a really interesting story that I think people are going to really enjoy, and I know I'm going to really enjoy hearing it. How you been doing anyway? All good?
I previously mentioned I'm tired, but the bang is kicking in. So sponsor me. Sponsor me.
Cool. We'll get straight into it. So, obviously the whole story is about your journey, your beginnings and stuff like that. So do you want to tell us about, your childhood, where you come from?
Yeah. So I've actually mentioned the story previously to other interviews. So I'm going to try to make this one, I'm going to try to pull details I haven't mentioned yet. So let's see. When I was a kid, I used to go to this, it was like a Jesuit Catholic school. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the better ones in the nation. I was poor. I grew up in poverty, but I was able to get through the entrance exam. So, my mom, bless her heart, because she's such a hardworking individual. She was able to get, go around, take loans just to put me through this academy and stuff. And my peers, my classmates, because I'm from a poor middle class family, and by third world country standards, a poor middle class family in the third world is like dead poor in in American standards or in first world country standards. But my peers, on the other hand, they were like the sons of mayors, of art, of actors, of they're notable figures, or would be notable figures. I think I have a classmate right now who is a mayor, so in their 20s, which is absurd, right? So yeah, those are the people I grew up with. So there is that kind of a disconnect with they're all posh, whereas with me, I'm all I'm on the streets. I used to buy pirated DVDs because I can't afford the real thing. You know what I'm saying? At the flea market. So those are the people I grew up with, and I had a couple of friends who were into wrestling. Who wrestling was cool because.
So sorry, kid, just to stop you there, just so people who are watching who don't know, where what country is it that you're from?
I was born in. Sorry, let me plug in my phone charger so it doesn't die halfway through. I was born in the Philippines. But I am of Filipino Japanese descent. So yeah, it's a little bit of that weird, because growing up, World War II, there was a Japanese occupation of the Philippines.
There was.
So it was in the cultures weren't really copacetic, I guess, that's the word. They didn't really get along with each other. There was a lot of resentment in the Philippine side for the Japanese people, and then eventually it turned into respect, admiration. Really, they learned. I guess my people learned to forgive in a sense, and even venerate the Japanese culture because of the close proximity of the countries. But I never. As weird as it is, I never really felt that that friction between my Japanese ancestry and my Filipino ancestry, which is more dominant. So, okay, going back to the story. Yeah, my peers, they all had cable because they're all rich, and wrestling. I grew up in a third world country where it wasn't public knowledge that wrestling was a work, so we all thought that was real.
The best way.
and we were kids too, so like, you know, like we were in the cusp of like realizing, oh, this is scripted, you know. But is it though? Like, yeah, they got some of these things got to be real, right? Like they actually chop them, you know, and they do actually chop them. Now that I'm a wrestler, I realize that some things are real, right? So when they would tell me about wrestling, I would do that kid thing where you're like, oh yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. What? Yeah, like, yeah, yeah. So like, you know, like, oh yeah, who's your favorite wrestler? Oh, you wouldn't have heard of them? No, they're yeah, that person's my favorite wrestler. Yeah, well, what they said, you know, because I didn't know wrestling. So I kind of made it like, okay, yeah, all my friends are talking about wrestling. I gotta get into it, you know. And it goes to my very first exposure of it was I stayed at a hotel visiting my family up north in the provinces, and they played SmackDown. And it was a segment between Ray and Eddie where they were talking about the custody of Dominic ladder match. And they were hyping it up. And Eddie gave Ray a brainbuster on the steel steps. And I remember being mesmerized. I'm like, holy crap, what is this? Is this the wrestling shit that like, oh, I'm sorry for cussing. Is this the wrestling that my friends are all hyped up about? This is cool. Rey Mysterio's so cool. Yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, and then I found out I had a neighbor back home who lived like maybe a mile away from where I lived, and I would just like ride my bike, you know, hike, like not hijack. I'm sorry, it's like I guess like hitchhike. There you go, hitchhike with like some people to get to my friend's place just to watch, so I could watch wrestling. And eventually, I got a console where they would play SmackDown versus Raw, and I would just come over all the time, play the video game with them. Eventually, I got my own console.
Which one was it? Was that the PlayStation 2?
It was Here Comes the Pain. SmackDown versus so it's just SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain.
Yeah.
And then I got my own console, and I got SmackDown versus Raw 2007. And when you're a kid from a developing country and you don't have a lot of money, you're kind of stuck with one game for an entire year. And I thankfully 07 had so much replayability with GM mode, so I never got bored of it. And then I upgraded to 08, and then, you know, I just kept getting them over and over, you know.
Brilliant. Okay, and you know, when was it that you decided to act on your sorry, just one sec. Courtney, Russ, hi guys, you're right. Just some guys in the commenting there, so we'll just say hello to them. When was it you decided, I know, I'm going to change from being a fan to start looking at, you know, to go into wrestling yourself?
Let's see. That would be, you know, let me do something. I'm going to share this on Twitter so we can get like a little bit of a little bit more away. Hello?
Oh, it's still here.
Do you have the link so I could like share it on Twitter real quick so we can?
Cool.
All right.
Oh, he's just clicked off, guys. It's okay. He'll be back in 2 seconds. He'll. I think he pressed the wrong button. That's what happens when you go live, unfortunately. But it is what it is. Should be back in 2 seconds. Courtney, Russ, how are we doing, guys? All good. It's all good, isn't it? Yeah. Well, this is going to be a weekly episode, guys. It's going to be something that we're going to do each week, and each week we'll have something new. So, you know, it'll be another step of Kid's journey of how he got to wrestling, where he's gone from here, what he's doing next. So we shouldn't be.
So sorry about that. That was incredibly unprofessional. But hopefully we get more people coming in now. All right. Here we go. So. What was the last thing we were discussing? It was about
when you turned around and felt your love for wrestling and you turned into wanting to pursue it.
So it kind of ties in, and with the friends I met over at that academy, we would play wrestle on recess, and you know, we were the only kids that would pretend to wrestle at like recess. Everybody else played basketball or football or soccer or something, you know. We were doing wrestling moves to each other, untrained. which is bad. So, you know, and thankfully nobody got injured when we were doing that. I remember having fun, and I would get home and I would just, you know, wrestle my pillows in bed as a kid. And I would do elbow drops in my pillow. I would come up with finishing moves, which I do now, which is cruel, right?
Always makes me laugh because you always hear like lads from around your area and they wrestle with pillows and stuff. When we were younger, you know, I'm 36 and we used to have wrestle buddies, you know, the old Hulk Hogan ones and stuff like that, and that was the stuff we used to wrestle with, but they never really made any the same as what they were back then. I used to have a Ultimate Warrior one and a Hulk Hogan one, and used to just like, it was kind of like this, but it was like a, you know, like a stuffed bit, like a stuffed toy. You used to be able to just do all kinds of moves on it.
This is Barry. I didn't buy this for anybody but myself. And this is where I practice all my submission moves. Because, like, I just needed something with limbs. You know, like, oh, there's the arm, there's the leg. I'm practicing submission moves. And I kept Barry because I'm like, okay, this is where I work on my stuff. Especially during COVID when you can't really, like, work on, like, the craft with people. But, yeah, I totally get you, you know.
Yeah, we've got My Name is Salsa as our memories. I took a backdrop in Job Corps, never again. So you were wrestling in the school, was it, at the time? And then did you start wrestling in the Philippines, or was that later
No,
on?
only that we played wrestle, but I didn't actually get into wrestling until I was here because so I grew up.
Is there any promotions in the Philippines? Any kind of wrestling that goes on there?
There is now. I don't know if there were a thing when I was, you know, because I was like, that was like, I left the Philippines out in 2008. So I don't know if these promotions that are there now were running back then, but right now, MWF is a thing. Actually, I just wrestled Ho Ho Lin at DPW, who is the current MWF champion. PWR is a promotion in the Philippines. So there is some traction in indie wrestling in the Philippines right now, but the thing is, it's like I got into wrestling last year, so unfortunately I'm in that process of like figuring out, what if I want to wrestle here, or like is there what promotions are there, you know? So I never heard of PWR or NWF when I was growing up, but then again I also did not hear about Ring of Honor until I was in America. So, you know, I had no idea that indie wrestling was a thing until I was like a teenager, and even then it was so foreign to me. It was like, oh, like you mean like Impact, like TNA, like that, is that indie wrestling, you know? Like
It's because but you know, around your time when you were probably watching at that time with the Guerrero and Rey Mysterio and stuff like that, there wasn't a lot, was there? There wasn't a lot of, you know, the indie promotions where if people knew about them, they were there, but WWE was so mainstream and so in your face and it was everywhere that, you know, people forgot it. You know, people didn't really get to see these smaller promotions, did they? Where now it seems to be, you know, the likes of GCW, they're starting to really climb up, aren't they?
Like my first exposure of like outside WWE promotions was actually when WWE brought back ECW, and that I thought it was like the coolest thing. But I didn't like, you know, you're a kid, you didn't have internet, so you had like the only narrative about ECW I heard was whatever WWE told me. It wasn't until I was like older where I got to do my own research, find out about like you know the Japanese strong style cruiserweights that Paul Heyman brought in. How basically ECW pioneered that high octane, fast action kind of style, which WCW eventually like elevated in their cruiserweight division. But I didn't know it started in ECW, right? So it was one of those that was my first exposure of outside wrestling. Then
outside mainstream wrestling.
Yeah, and speaking of ECW, WWE ECW, I was working with Kelly yesterday, so I just had to put it out there, you know. Kelly, yeah, my pick for the Rumble for 2022. Also, she was my top star in ECW because it was so easy to raise her popularity in GM mode in SmackDown vs. 08. Just putting it out there. Like it was like, oh man, I know all Kelly's moves because I used to pick her as like one of my top stars in the GM mode when I was a kid. So hey man, I'm not a mark. I just know everything about you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with all the hotbeds of talent of you know, the indie wrestling as well. You know, in the anybody who's in the UK should go and check out TNT. You know, who's the local promotion in my city. They've got Scotty Too Hotty over here in March, I think it is, or April, and they have, like, the way they do it is that, you know, they've got TNT Extreme, they've got TNT, which is obviously for 18 plus. Then they've got the TNT Ignition, which is for the younger kid, you know, the younger families and stuff. And then they have a, like, kind of smaller show again, which is oh, sorry guys, I think we lost him again. Give us 2 seconds, he should be back. Oh. Sorry about this. As I say, it's what happens when we're live, guys. Here we go.
Oh my gosh, this is so. I'm so sorry. Okay, so you were last thing I heard was you were talking about TNT.
Yeah, I was saying the Have Ignition's really good show. It's TNT Ignition, which is more family friendly. Then they have the TNT Extreme, which is more for over 18s. And then they've even got a TNT Superstar show that they run as well, which gives the chance for some young talent to get up there. So, you know, they've got a really good setup, and, you know, that's just one in the UK. I mean, for me, it's one of the premier ones in the UK. They have some really cracking talent, and, you know, Lizzie Evo and a few others that are really gonna, you know, you should see them come up the ladder. But, you know, that's just in my country, in my city, and it's like it's happening everywhere now. So, you know, for you it must be exciting times, the fact that there's a lot of places you can go and wrestle.
Yeah, and it's my friend Dom, who I went
no
to...
audio.
Oh. Hello.
Nope.
Okay.
I think he's a fuck that, but yeah, Warren Davis, he said TNT and reaching Plymouth for the must see in the UK. He's definitely, mate, really, definitely, it's good stuff. And he still needs to get to a local show in London. There's a lot of shows in London, but you know what, Riley, jump on a train, come up to Liverpool and check out TNT. It's really good shows.
Hello.
Nope.
What? No.
Oh, you can hear him, can you? It must be my audio then.
Oh,
sorry,
no.
It's me, not you.
All right, here we go.
I
will, dude. If this was anime, if I could just put subtitles on the bottom.
Is messing around. What is it doing?
Yo.
Hello. Hey, there you go. I can hear you now. It was my headphones. It's not you. It was me.
Okay. Cool. Also, hello. Shout out to oh god, I'm gonna butcher this because it is a handle. Brysoon. Oh my god, that I probably.
Hey, Brysoon, how you doing?
Hello, Riley. Okay, so to answer your question, I think it's cool to be an indie wrestler in this day and age. It's like, so I want to say, it's like, if you're looking at it from like a music standpoint, it's weird. It's like you feel cool if you know like this very obscure musician that's great, you know what I'm saying? So it's like. Yeah. So like now, if you're a wrestling fan in 2022, you're just like, oh yeah, I know about Effie and Alley Catch and GCW. That's how punk rock I am. I know about wrestling that you probably have never heard about. You know, it's kind of like you're a wrestling hipster, which, you know, I don't really get like the appeal of like, you know, being in the know of like some obscure stuff, but I do get the appeal of like kind of having that exclusive like connection to like all this indie talent, because like let's be honest, like indie talent, when they're great, they blow up, and when they blow up, they get picked up, you know, and when they get picked up, they eventually, you know, fingers crossed.
That's it, isn't it? So we'll go back to your story, and you went from the Philippines to the USA. What you said, it was 2008 you moved over?
Yeah.
And how was the transition when you moved from?
It was terrible. I had no friends. I barely spoke English. Like most of my vernacular came from like listening to like Rise Against and watching Harry Potter and Star Wars and just like watching South Park on repeat so I could learn all the cuss words in case somebody cussed me out and I didn't understand. And it's even doubly hard when like the area I moved into is predominantly Hispanic, so most people spoke Spanish anyway. So like I barely spoke English. Everybody spoke Spanish, so I'm just like, like, so what do I gotta learn? Do I gotta learn English or do I gotta learn Spanish? And then I ended up kind of learning both at the same time. My Spanish was very, very rusty. I I'm cognizant enough to like understand when somebody's talking to me in Spanish. I can kind of make out what they say, but my English was the key focus here because, like, you know, I went to school for doing English. I was enrolled in like remedial classes for English because I have really good, you know. And then I started writing an essay one day where I just used like all the fancy, eloquent words that I hear in music, and they were like, "We shouldn't have this kid in like non-native English speakers because like they just used like a plethora of like fancy words that, you know, like college level words." And I'm like, "Hey, I just heard it in the song." I just Googled what it meant and I wanted to use it, you know.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest part. So the language barrier, the cultural barriers, the fact wrestling wasn't cool. To all my friends, like I would come up to them and be like, "Hey, y'all watch WWE?" And they're like, "Oh, that fake shit." And I'm like, nah, nah. Because this was around the time UFC was also starting to take off. So people were kind of dumping, like, you know, sports entertainment in favor of like real fighting, which I respect. You know, I train in MMA too, so I like UFC, but at the same time, my ultimate passion is like, you know, backflip fighting. So backflip theater fighting. I'm sorry. There you go.
That's it, and they're both athletic, you know.
Exactly.
Just because, just a different type, isn't it? And there's a place for everything, as we all know.
Yeah,
You know, WWE have proved that more than anything. Just to the guys in the chat and guys watching, we will do a little bit of a 5-minute Q&A at the end. So, you know, I won't just read out questions as they come in because obviously I don't want to ruin the flow of the program. So if you want to throw questions in, throw them in, and we'll push them out at the end. Okay. So yeah, obviously you're now in the US. You're going through school and stuff like that. When did you start wrestling? When did you start training to be a wrestler?
2019. My first day was June. Something. I don't remember the exact date, but it was June 2019, and that was because the group of students I started the training with, we call ourselves the June Crew because we all started in June, and there was 27 of us that started, but only 4 of us.
And where was this? At the Nightmare Factory, or was this?
No. This was at Santino's Wrestling Academy in LA.
Right, yeah.
So I actually, one of the reasons why I went to the Nightmare Factory was, 1, I'm a Cody Rhodes mark, big Cody Rhodes mark, and 2, it was because our school shut down because of the pandemic. And I was Facebook friends with Brooke Havoc, who's was in Camp 1. And shout out to her, by the way, hoping for speedy recovery for Brooke. When I saw that she was in the school, I just knew I had to get to Cody's school too. So I did what I could. I reached out to people and all that stuff, and you know, and the rest is history. I went to Cody's school. I learned so much from him in QT. And I used everything I could to like network and communicate and just work on my craft. And you know, like it. I started the journey in 2019, but I didn't debut till 2021. So I had a lot of time to work on my stuff, work on my weight loss, work on my hair, you know, like the image at least, you know, because like, yeah, it's a joke, but it's also like a big part of like wrestling is your presentation. And I think a lot of people kind of neglect that aspect of wrestling. Is it's a show. It's a show, so you have to show.
Do you know, one thing I always look at when I look at a wrestler is, and this is how I, you know, obviously there's a lot of factors, but one factor I always look at straight away and think, could you make this guy into a figure?
Yeah.
You know, it's like that. You know, because obviously, you always hear stories of Vince McMahon and other promoters and stuff. They look at the image of a person and think, can I see this guy on a lunchbox, a figure? You know, do they stand out enough for that to happen? You know what I mean? So obviously you've got to look at that. You've got to work on your image, haven't you?
Absolutely, and it's thankfully grown from how it used to be, where like the standard of a professional wrestler, at least in the male department, was that you had to be 6'5", 250 pounds of pure jack muscle, which isn't it isn't wrong. I think it's still cool when people come into wrestling looking like that. Like Brian Cage is a beast, you know. Like I think he's a beast. My tag team partner Ishmael Vaughn, he is 6'5", 252 pounds of muscle. And it's like, yeah, my tag team partner is the prototypical, like, wrestler and stuff. But then you get the opposite side of that spectrum. I'm 5'5". I'm 140 pounds on a great day, So
when you went back to go back to the start again, you went into Santino. Was Santino training you when you were at that academy?
What do you mean, like? Oh no, Santino. So it's funny. It's the school's called Santino Bros, but Santino Marella has no affiliation with the school. It's run by Joey Chaos and Mongol Santino from XPW fame over in LA. But yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. How did you find it in that camp? Was it tough at first, or were they good with you? What was it like there?
Oh, it was tough. Oh my God, I'm still blocking memories of that, like from like because it was tough. But I get why they made the training tough, because the business is tough. The people who run the business are tough. The fans can be vicious and cruel. So they prepare you for that. I mean, as much as they can. I don't think anybody can really prepare you for like getting all that hate that you get with like in tandem with success. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Especially because I kind of blew up like very almost overnight. I would hazard to say. So how
did you feel like that first bit prepared you for the Nightmare Factory, or
wrestling wise? Yeah, my fundamentals were solid. I'm not a fundamental wrestler, by the way, which is funny because my fundamentals were there, and I spent my time in the Nightmare Factory using that fundamentals and reshaping it to fit my style. But I knew how to run the ropes. I knew how to bump. I knew how to chain wrestle. I knew the basic stuff. Like I knew the psychology, but what I didn't know is how to work an audience, because I've never worked. I've had training matches in Santino's, but I've never worked in front of a crowd. I've never had a match in front of anybody ever. So that was my very first professional wrestling debut was at the Nightmare Factory against Trevor Outlaw. And speedy recovery to you, Trevor. Because he also hurt his ACL. So nice. That would be my very first time working in wrestling, and I get to say that I made my debut in front of my childhood hero, and that is like the coolest thing. Cody was there watching my match. He had notes for my match, so I just thought wow, this is the reality I lived in.
It's awesome, isn't it? It's awesome,
right?
Well,
good.
What we'll do is we'll cut it off there, kids. Obviously, we're going to go on to episode 2 next week, so we'll go on from the Nightmare Factory there next week. Just before we do wrap it up till next week, I'm just going to go through and ask a few of the questions the guys have been asking in the comment section, if that's okay.
Yeah,
let's do it. Okay, so Courtney says, would you go to WWE even on a short-term contract?
No. I mean, it's tempting. I think if everything falls into place, sure, but the loyalty in me is my coach is literally the vice president of AEW. I feel guilty if I went to WWE instead of AEW. But that being said, if AEW never offers a contract, or they flat out say, hey, we're not really looking, we don't got nothing for you yet, but WWE offers, I want to make money doing this. So I'll definitely have a really long sit down with myself about that, because WWE it's not as appealing for wrestling talent as it used to be. I definitely think that more now than ever, because of them just releasing people left and right. So it doesn't have the same allure that it did maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. But at the same time, it's still the Fed. It's still WWE. There's still a lot of history attached to that. But I would rather go to AEW 100%.
So we've got Riley Kirkham says, are you going to be heading to the UK for shows in the near future? We've already talked about this before, have we not? Do you want to
I have plans. But I can't really say anything until the plans have been finalized, just because I don't want to like put it out there and be like, yeah, I'm gonna be there, and then because there's too many variables going on right now with COVID. I believe is the UK still kind of like shut down?
No, we're all open again now.
Oh, okay, sick. So if everything works out, because I'm getting my passports, and my ideal dates would be Leeds. Leeds. Hopefully London. If I can make it a tour almost. I would love to work. I would love to work for Progress. That could be my. Like if they even have a place, because there is another protagonist of professional wrestling in the United Kingdom, and but they're not I believe they're more of a host right now, but yeah. But they're work in progress. So
we've got TNT in Liverpool. It's big show, big crowds.
I believe you talked about that earlier.
As well. Riley says, "Kid, the diversity you bring to wrestling is very much welcome and so heartwarming to see from a fellow non-binary. Thank you."
Yeah.
Brilliant. We've got. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Courtney loves your hair.
It's like kind of like messed up right now. I'm sorry.
So, kids, that's the end of episode 1. Obviously, we'll be back at the same time, same place next week. With episode 2, where we continue with your journey. And obviously we got up to the Nightmare Factory. We'll talk more about the Nightmare Factory and then where we go from there. So, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you do hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Join us again this time next week, and also over the weekend, make sure you check us out. Friday night, we'll be live with our Royal Rumble predictions, and then Saturday, we will have our Royal Rumble watch-along, so make sure you join us as well. But until then, Wrestle Buddies, thanks for watching, kid. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time next week. Take care.
Thank you. And the bang is almost gone. Bye.